This example actually happened about 2 years ago, and this was one of the biggest lessons that actually helped me to develop the social capital model of online game and of text messaging, that sort of thing. Because what I did here is I made a lot of very interesting mistakes. Up until this point, I was kind of messaging in a haphazard way. I was using the things I knew about game in general, the things I would do in a live in-person interaction, and just trying to transfer them to an online messaging type of a scenario. And I was making a lot of stupid mistakes, which I'll outline for you here. And what happened here was that I got very clearly punished each time I made a mistake, and I got very clearly rewarded each time I did something right. And so it really helped to clarify the model and really helped me to understand what was going on. So the first message that I sent to this girl was, if you can be a goofball and a bitch in the same sentence, I'll buy you a drink. Todd. Okay, this is an interesting message. It's actually a pretty good format. I sort of stole this format and reused it, and it works okay. You say, if you can do X and Y at the same time, I'll buy you a drink, or I'll do some other kind of reward thing. I like buy you a drink because it's, like you want a bet kind of thing, but it's also like I'll take you out for a drink. So I actually like that. It's not bad. The only issue with this is it does require you to not necessarily read the profile, but at least scan the profile in order to have that. Again, this is something I was doing a couple years ago when I was spending a lot more time and effort in reading the profiles instead of just doing a more of a copy-paste method. But it's a pretty good format, pretty good first message. Also, by including my name, Todd, it makes it look a bit less like a copy and paste message, so that makes it more likely to get a response. Plus, obviously, I'm referring to the profile. So it has a lot of good elements to it, but it's just a first message like any other. Okay, so let's look at where it goes from here. So her response is, haha, while that's quite a lovely offer, I'm pretty sure we would strangle each other within minutes. Okay, this is a really interesting response, because on the one hand, you could look at it as being extremely sexual. It's like, like sort of BDSM type stuff. On the other hand, you could look at it as being a shit test. At this point, I think it's better to treat it more as a shit test and just allow for the possibility that it's sexual rather than to assume that it's super sexual. Because if you assume that it's super sexual and you're right, yeah, the girl will like you and things will go well. But if you assume that it's super sexual and you're wrong, you'll immediately kill the interaction. Whereas if you assume it's a shit test with a little bit of sexuality, and you're right, you're going to play it properly. If you assume it's a shit test with some sexuality and you play it a little bit wrong, it was more sexual, well, you might not have advanced the set as fast as you could have, but you're not going to really go backwards, and you're not going to ruin the set. So you have a much higher percentage chance over the range of possibilities. And this is a good general principle, which is you want to, if in doubt within the model, if you can't quite tell where you're at, tend to play the slightly safer of the two categories. Okay, so in this case, you should treat it a little more like a shit test, but allow for the sexuality thing as well. So my next message was to pass the shit test and to sort of like allow for that sexuality, but to do it in a way where I'm not chasing, I'm not needy, I'm not trying too hard for anything. So my version of that was, I guess if that's what you're into, with little like emoticon, I might want to know you for an hour or two first, though. I'm kind of shy. Another emoticon. Okay, so in this case, what am I doing? I'm playing up the idea that she said something sexual, kind of calling her out on it and like being a little cheeky, but at the same time, I'm dealing with it as a shit test, and I'm not saying like, oh, why don't you send me a naked picture, or trying to like go for the date, or trying to escalate super fast right then and there. Remember, we're only one message in, and while a lot of times we will get the phone number very quickly, 2, 3 messages, there's no need to assume that you have to get it that quickly. It's okay to take a few and take your time a little bit along the way. So now her response to that was, man, you're a bit arrogant, aren't you? How's your day going so far? So here's another one that's a little bit confusing, because she says, man, you're a bit arrogant, aren't you? Which is a shit test, and then how's your day going so far, which is a logical question. So that's further up the social capital. That's saying, I do want to talk to you. So at this point, I would interpret that she likes me, but she's scared. She's giving some sort of like resistance, some sort of barriers, but she clearly is pretty into me. However, it's still a shit test, and so I still would prioritize passing the shit test. Again, play the safer route in terms of what you choose, but if there's this other information that's positive, be a little more open and allow for more possibilities in what you answer, but don't demand more possibilities. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's what you want to do. Take the safer route, but allow for the greater victory as well if she wants to jump on board. So my response here is pretty interesting. I passed the shit test, and then I did something that I'll explain to you in a minute. The response itself is, if by arrogant you mean mind-blowingly amazing, then yes, I'm probably a bit arrogant, with a winky face. You seem fairly confident yourself. Do you think you can handle a guy who travels for a living? Okay, So what did I do? I misinterpreted. Remember the ways that you can pass a shit test. You can ignore, which doesn't really work online, but it works well in person. Misinterpret, treat it like a compliment, or agree and exaggerate, take it to its logical extreme where it can't possibly be treated seriously anymore. In this case, I did a misinterpretation. I misinterpreted that the word arrogant meant mind-blowingly amazing. Okay, so misinterpretation and go with it. So I passed the shit test really well, but then I did this other thing, which is instead of just passing the shit test, I tried to ask a question. Right? So that kills the tension, and it makes for like a convoluted sort of response as well. It makes it a little incongruent. But the other thing, the reason why I sent this, can you handle a guy who travels for a living? What I'd been doing before was I had sort of a copy and paste sequence I'd been using, and one of the things that I was throwing in is, can you handle a guy who travels for a living? Because it would provoke the question, why do you travel, or where do you travel, what do you do for a living, those sorts of questions. And I had a very stock response to them that would lead the interaction forward. So I was essentially attempting to provoke the stock response. So rather than dealing with the situation as it is, I was trying to just crowbar something that had worked before, and it didn't end up working very well at all here. What I ended up getting, by the way, the other reason I say the travel like for a living thing is it's kind of like, it seems kind of cool, and it seems kind of high status without trying. You're saying it as a negative, but it's actually a positive. It's this idea of conveying instead of saying. Okay, but in this case, I got a very negative reaction to this. What she said was, that is totally what I meant by arrogant. You're like a mind reader. I'm actually not a confident person. I just know who I am and what I want. No, I don't think I could handle a guy who travels for a living unless he was just on the side kind of thing. I'm really physical, and I look for someone who can give me that. And I don't think someone who travels would really be able to give me that unless they're perfect for me in every other way. So this is a very negative response. And I really didn't know how to respond to it at the time. Again, I didn't understand the social capital model. I didn't know where I was at. This is a pretty serious shit test, and like a serious like objection rejection. And I think the reason why I got it was, number one, I happened to hit something that she logically didn't like that well, and she did respond to it logically. But also the format of my previous message left something to be desired. Had I just passed the shit test and left her to react, respond, work for me, chase a little bit, I think it would have worked a lot better. When I added the question, it became incongruent, it became chasing, and so it opened the door for this as well. I did get unlucky here in that I triggered sort of the wrong thing in her. But so in this case, what I should have done is said, okay, I've lost a bit of social capital. Let me back off and just pass the shit test again and keep it fun, funny, lighthearted, move it forward as best as I can. But what I did instead was I didn't know what to do. This was, again, a few years ago. So what I did is I just threw the Hail Mary. I'm like, okay, well, I don't know how to do this, so let me try and get her on the phone because I know I can handle it in person. So I kind of threw the Hail Mary and tried to close. And this is one of the single biggest mistakes guys make, trying to close off of a shit test. Do not ever do this. Okay, so I'll tell you about what I actually sent and then why it was wrong and what the response was. So my response was, well, fortunately, I happen to be perfect. Seriously, though, that was a very self-aware answer, and I can relate about being physical. Perhaps that's all better discussed over a drink. What's your number? Okay, so I tried to downplay it. I tried to like make her feel more comfortable overall, which wasn't a terrible idea. But then trying to close off of this is just trying for too much. The problem was I tried for too much in the first place, got punished, and then I tried for too much even more. So I fully deserve to get silence in this case. I fully deserve for her to either give me some real shit or to stop talking to me. And what she did here is she just stopped talking to me. Okay, so at this point, the response was silence. And we'd been messaging back and forth every couple days, like every day or so, or even multiple times a day. All of a sudden, silence for 3 days. So now I knew I had to turn it around. So here's what I tried. So the first thing I tried was the following message. Saw this video and thought it was almost as adorable as you, and then YouTube link. Now, this is actually a YouTube link to a really, really cute video. It's these two kittens cuddling with each other. It's like the mother cat like cuddling the baby cat. It's like seriously the cutest thing you've ever seen in your entire life. The link's on the screen if you want to look at it. It's a pretty cute video. And the reason I did this was, again, I was split testing various things. And what I had found was I was trying to figure out how to recover silence. So I had many messages going at once. And I'd found that when I sent this message to girls that had been giving me silence, it got a response a high percentage of the time. What I didn't realize was that down the road, all these responses still went nowhere because the girls were responding to the message being cute, but they weren't responding to me. So they're thinking, aha, here's this cute thing, here's this interesting little tidbit, but they weren't thinking, here's an interesting man, because it wasn't about me. And so this message ended up working a lot to turn on silence, but ended up never really going anywhere later in the samples that I used, so I eventually stopped using it. But in this case, I was just doing the best I could. I was trying something, didn't work. So now I've gotten silence twice. A lot of people just give up here, but I didn't. I'm very experimental, so I kept plugging and tried something else. Here's what I tried. So it went a few more days, and then I sent, us not talking for 2 weeks is going beyond playing hard to get. You're going to drive me into the arms of several other women at this rate. Okay, so this is an interesting one. This is how you turn around the type of silence when they've been messaging back and forth and then they go silent, right? So what you do is you call out the silence, you call out that it's a little socially weird, but you don't do it in a demanding or butthurt way. You don't do it in a way that says you're needy or desperate or you're giving too much into it. You just say fun, lighthearted, who cares? I'm just throwing this out here. I'm interested in you or interested enough to talk to you, but I'm not super invested. I'll be okay either way. I can take it or leave it. Okay, so that's what you're doing, and it's fun and funny. It's a little bit creative, so you're actually offering value even as you're calling them out because you're offering your own personality, you're offering possibly a laugh, etc. Okay, so this is a message that actually had a chance of working, and in fact, it did work. So her response was, ha ha ha, well, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm sure other women can have satisfy you. How is your fourth? Okay, so it's a little bit unclear what she's trying to say here. I think she's saying like, I think she maybe is being like fairly sexually open, knowing what I end up knowing about this girl later down the road that you can't know now. She's saying, I hope you're having good sex. That's a good thing. That's a positive thing. But in this case, it's pretty unclear about what was going on here. I didn't really understand it. And then she said, how is your fourth? Which is a logical question. And so that's very positive, right? So all of a sudden, this is actually kind of is a little bit of a shit test too, but there's the logical questions. We're kind of back where we started again. We're this neutral in-between ground where we don't know where we stand, but it has elements of both. So what am I to do? Well, again, I didn't know the social capital model, but I did something that's very intelligent overall, which is I'd found one format that works. So I tried to reuse that same format, right? This is what we call finding a girl's blueprint or learning what buttons to push. So I learned that this sort of non-try hard, calling her out sort of frame works really well. And so I hit her up with basically a similar frame and actually even a message about the same topic. So here's what I said. First, you ignore me. Now you won't even fight for me? Seriously, at this rate, I'm going to have to go back to single on Facebook. Okay, so again, this is calling her out on the whole thing, being fun and funny, not super try hard, not super needy, okay? So that's what I'm trying to do here. I just found a format that worked, and I said, okay, I'll use the same formula again. Kind of a smart thing to do. It didn't necessarily move things forward, but at least it made sense. At least I wasn't being an idiot anymore. So her response to that was, ha ha, I'm just the worst, huh? Maybe you just need to kidnap me to take me out. So in response to this message, it's still a shit test. There's a little bit of positive. There's a little bit of sexuality. So mostly I need to just pass the shit test. But in passing the shit test, I now have a lot more leeway. Okay, I have a lot more leeway to get sexual and to try more risque things because, first of all, her message itself is more positive. But secondly, there's more of a history of messaging. So there's more inherent social capital, less chance of her going quiet. So I still need to just pass the shit test. I should not try and escalate. Should not move for plans. And I should not be asking questions or adding other things, but I can pass the shit test with more leeway and in a more sexual, more fun, positive way. So that's what I do here. My response is, agreed, meet me in Cambridge. I'll bring the duct tape and we can get our Stockholm Syndrome on. But just for the record, I'm a sweet, shy boy and I find this all very troubling. All right, so again, I'm passing it. I'm kind of going along with the frame, agree and exaggerate, right? She says, you need to kidnap me. So I say, okay, I'll take the kidnapping thing and I'll really play with it. But then I tone it down and I say, but I'm a sweet, shy boy. This is all very troubling, etc. Because I don't want to be too try hard. I don't want to be so overtly sexual that it could be immediately off-putting. So it's playing that middle ground again. Her response to that was, ha ha ha, I'm sure you are. I think you're secretly a trickster. Okay, so again, this is a little bit shit testy, a little bit sexual. She seems to really like this type of vibe of shit testy sexual. All right, so again, what I need to do is be passing the shit test, not trying for too much, but adding a little bit to it, maybe hinting at possibilities, but not saying let's get together, not making big moves. But what I did again in this case was I got confused, I didn't know how to respond, and so again I threw the Hail Mary. I tried to escalate too fast. What I responded with was, haha, absolutely. I'm going to be traveling again soon, so if you'd like to keep talking, my number is, and then my number. What's yours, Todd? Okay, now, to my credit, I suppose, or in my defense is a better way of saying it, I was traveling soon and I did feel the need that I needed something to happen soon or it wouldn't happen. So given that, the fact that I pressed is a little bit excusable, but it's still wrong. And realize that when you try and go too fast, you actually slow things down. That's the big realization. A lot of times, the best way to go fast is to go slow, but go properly, to write good things, but to write them at the normal pace. and to let it go a couple messages, but make them good messages. Okay, so that's what I really should have done here, is just said, forget the fact I have a time constraint, take your time, play it right, etc. But again, I just threw the Hail Mary because I was a little confused, I didn't know what to do. And what I should expect to get here, knowing what we know about the social capital model, is I spent more social capital than I had. I should expect to get either a very negative response or silence. So again, I got silence for about 3 days. And then I went back to the well that had worked before. This same idea of the calling her out on not messaging me, but in a fun, lighthearted, funny way kind of message, right? So it's another of these like resuscitation messages, but it's of the same format that worked before. So I'm going to try this. Here's what I wrote. Or did you just want to be my online buddy, know me by an avatar, date via an app on Facebook, and have an online chat room wedding if we really hit it off? Question mark. So I'm calling her now out on the ridiculousness of not responding when we clearly like each other. But again, I'm not saying, you asshole bitch, why did you flake on me? Why don't you like me? Right? That would be too butthurt. That'd be fucked up. Instead, it's still fun and lighthearted, and like I don't really care that much. Like I can take it or leave it, and like I'm gonna have a good time either way. So that's a very, very important part of this, is the vibe of what I'm saying. Okay. Now her response to that was, well, I adore the idea of a chat room wedding. I'm picking out my dress as we speak. Forgive me if I'm a little nervous about the age difference. I'm honestly still just a kid, and the idea of going out with someone that much more mature than myself is a little scary. All right, now this is really, really huge, because the whole time I was getting sort of this vague resistance, this sort of like, shit testy, positive, like she clearly likes me, but there's some kind of wall up and I can't figure out what it is. Now I've explicitly identified the wall, and this is huge. One of the big things you want to do in any kind of sales environment or any kind of pickup environment or online dating, whatever, is you want to get the excuses out so that you can solve them. A vague excuse cannot be solved, but a specific excuse is very easy, right? And you want to become a problem solver. It's one of the key things as you get good at game. Getting the girl to like you is not the hard part. Solving the problems that are between you two getting together is the hard part. So now I know the specific problem. I know it's an age thing, so I can directly work on the age. I also at this point know the formula, the blueprint that's worked before, which is calling out the ridiculousness of a situation, but doing it in a lighthearted, fun, funny way. So what I need to do here is take the new knowledge and the old knowledge and put it together. Right? So I know that the age thing's the objection, and I know that the way to deal with this girl, the way that she likes to be dealt with, is to hit her up in a fun, funny way that's not butthurt, but calls her out and doesn't take bullshit. So my message was, haha, well, I haven't eaten anyone this week, I promise. Even as charming as I am, there's only so much trouble I can be on the phone, so I think you're relatively safe. Okay? This is pretty good in its nature. It's a little bit try hard and a little bit sort of begging for like, please like me or please trust me. It would have been better if it was a little more biting, but still had that same vibe. But it's of the right format, so it's something that actually should have worked. But in this case, it didn't. It got silence. And this time, I'm just going genuine, because at this point, I've identified the fact that like, because it's the age thing, and because she basically says she likes me, but it's the age is the problem, I'm thinking she just needs to feel more comfortable. So now I'm just going to throw some comfort out there and not ask for anything. That's the key thing here in terms of social capital. It's not necessarily the most value offering message in terms of like being fun and funny, but it is genuine. It's offering genuineness, and again, it's not asking for anything. So here's what we're going to do. And actually, it is kind of asking for something, but what it's doing more than asking for something, and this is an important distinction, is it's offering a solution. Okay, so offering a solution is a little different. So here's what I wrote. If you're really that nervous/shy, you can call me from a blocked number at a prearranged time. Once you talk to me, you'll love me. Yes, that's arrogant, but it's also true. So this was like kind of my last Hail Mary. That was how I was viewing it. She'd gone silent a few times, and a lot of people would have given up at this point, but I thought it was still worth it, so I sent one more time. And in response to this, she actually did not write me back online, but what she did was she had my number from a previous text message, and she actually texted me to my phone. She texted the following. Hi, Todd. This is your future chat room wife, smiley face. So now we'd moved from online to the phone, and I did end up getting a date with her, and actually I ended up having sex with her in public on the first date. So it was a pretty adventurous sort of evening for me. And I'm glad that I was persistent enough to actually make that happen. So I hope you learned a lot from this. This literally is one of the examples that really hammered home this model to me and really helped me figure it out, because it was almost uncanny where every single time that I did something right, I got a pretty good answer. Every single time I did something wrong, I got punished. And it made me really realize how predictable and binary all this is. And it helped me work out the model, because I was thinking, why did this one work? Why did this other one not work? And it started to all come together because the patterns were very clear in this particular case. So I hope it's been as educational for you as it was for me. And I will see you on the next video.